atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a Kamen Rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me, as always, my lovely co-host and editor.
Hello, I am Rex.
And we are back at it again here in a new year.
Yeah, the first recording in, God, quite some time now.
Yeah, no, we haven't recorded in a month. I think it's been a month. I think.
I'm bad at keeping track of time.
Or it's really close to being a month. It's one of the two.
One or the other.
But no, first recording of 2024. Technically, this is the beginning of I don't know. We don't do seasons. I don't think. Is this a new season?
I'm just going to say it's the start of the new year, man.
Okay. We'll have to figure that out. We'll workshop that. We'll find out if this is season 4 of the show or not. So, and what's funny is we haven't recorded in like a month, and we really haven't talked in like a month outside of the 2 phone calls we've had in the last week.
Yeah, because both you and I have, like, especially you more than me, have just been out of time.
Yeah, no. It's. I mean, we can get into that a little bit here with how we're doing, because, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a point right now where I'm like, I'm legitimately getting exhausted, and I have to sleep because of how much I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, life's just been pretty crazy. A lot of, last year, the very tail end of last year had a lot of things going on, a lot of unexpected events, not in a bad way, I should mention. And yeah, this year's I'm really interested to see where this year goes, let's say.
Yeah, I wish, I don't know. I was going to say, I wish I could agree with you, but I think I kind of do. Because you and I kind of had similar situations going on at the end, like tail end of the year. Yours was tail end. Mine was beginning of the year, which, I mean, I've enjoyed myself. I've had a good time. But then I have also been like waterlogged with work. Mm-hmm. And it's been good work. Like today I've been sitting in front of a computer screen researching. We're up to 18 hours now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 18 hours. Friend of mine messaged me and she was like, "What have you like? Why are you not really in the conversation?" I was like, "Look, I've been talking. I've been texting people in Japanese for a quarter of my day. I've been watching movies for 3 hours. I've been researching the Japanese government for like 7 hours. I've been researching a movie for 6 hours. I've been listening to Japanese music. I don't even know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like my location services aren't functioning right now."
Mm.
And I was just like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just out of it. I'm not here. But like, again, not upset by that. Some stuff I've been teasing is eventually going to be done and released. So that is where I am excited, because I've been waiting and trying to like get to this point for a while. I don't know how long I've been talking about this. I want to say it's been like 4 or 5 months, but I could be wrong. Time doesn't exist for me. time is not something that is actually
It just
real.
isn't real.
Yeah, but it is what it is. I probably should take a day off, but I can't really afford to. Not financially can't afford to, but I am afraid if I stop for one day, I'm gonna get behind on all this work, and I can't really do that.
Yeah.
I'm on a timetable of like I have to have 3 or so things done by the end of March, and I'm not even going to be remotely to the halfway point until February.
Yeah.
So, but nonetheless, I hope that once it's all done, I get to be like, hey guys, this is really cool. Check this out. Rex, you know what it is, but I unfortunately am not able to talk about it just yet.
The time will come.
It will. But I will say I'm excited to see what this year will bring us. I think we've already kind of teased at the fact that like this year we're not going to be doing as much.
Yeah.
We're definitely dialing it back. Not a whole lot. I still think we're producing just about as much as we were last year, but it is like a little bit less.
Yeah, but that's also because last year was pretty crazy, and we just kept adding things as well.
Yeah, and in December it got a little like spicy there when it came to scheduling and recording and publishing and editing.
Yeah.
And like the first like 4 months for both of us, I think this year are going to be kind of like, it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
So after the first half of this year, it's going to kind of level out, and we're going to kind of get back to where we were, but we definitely need a little bit of a breather.
Yeah. I've enjoyed having this little break that we've had.
I have two, but I have not been able to watch that much Tokusatsu. It sounds like you may have.
I've watched a bit. Yeah, I've rewatched -1. Finally finished off Ultra Q with the last couple episodes. I watched a couple of the first episodes of Ultraman Tiga, and yeah, that's about all I can recall off the top of my head. The new Garo show had its premiere yesterday, but I was going to watch it today, but I have not had the time yet at all.
Well, God, okay. So I have not had like any time to watch anything.
Damn.
I did. So I had a friend come over. We haven't hung out in like, I kid you not, it's been like 5 years since we've hung out.
God damn.
And I went over to mutuals of ours for New Year's, and like we just ended up chit chatting about like Godzilla versus Kong and Godzilla X Kong and -1 and Shin Godzilla.
Right.
And I was like, we need to hang out more so we can have some conversations, because like I love doing the shows with you, Rex. I love streaming. I love all that. But also it is kind of nice sometimes to just be able to like talk about stuff and not, have to produce that content, not have to have that energy of like, this is me. So I hit him up. I was like, hey, you want to hang out like on this day? And he was like, sure. So he came over. We put in the Whale God. I got that in the mail. But what's funny is like 2 minutes in, I got an email, and I checked the email and it said something, and I was like, oh, I need to contact somebody immediately because it's a project I've been working on since August, And I finally got an update, so I was like, I gotta go. I gotta check in. I gotta like touch bases and see where we gotta go from here. And then like the rest of the runtime of the movie, I was like doing research and sending messages and sending pictures and references and being like, here's this and here's that, and this is what we need to do here. And so I never got to watch it. My friend did. He said he enjoyed it. I don't know. This is the second time I've tried to watch it. Well, first time I've tried to watch it, second time it's been on. I guess I can talk about this now because the disc is out. I was supposed to be a producer of a video essay and audio commentary for The Whale God. The script was done for the video essay. The equipment for the video essay was purchased. The script for the commentary was done. It was recorded. But by the time that stuff was done, it was too late. And so we ended up not being able to put it out. That was a co-production with Nathan Marchand of the Monster Island Film Vault and Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project, which I'm sure if you guys are listening to this, first of all, you've heard Danny's voice because he did our theme song. But Nathan is also a fellow podcaster. So, like, towards the tail end of December, like before Christmas, that was something I was working on, trying to get that done, and then getting the news that, hey, it's too late. It can't happen. So that movie kind of is bittersweet for me right now. Because it's like, first of all, I like tried to edit an audio commentary to the movie. So like I've worked, like I've had to watch it and like pay attention for cuts and things, and it's like, ooh, that's already messed with the film itself for me. And then, the whole it's too late to put it on there just kind of soured my taste. Eventually I'm gonna watch it, of course, but
yeah.
I'll need a little bit before I actually do. So we watched that, in air quotes. Then we got onto a topic of Japanese zombie movies.
Oh no.
Because I can't I can't let that go. And then we got into vampires. And I had just I've been buying Tokusatsu. I will say that I've been purchasing Tokusatsu. I've got like over 10 titles in recently. One of them is a 2011 vampire movie called Sanguivorous. I don't know if that's actually how you say it, but it's actually more of a short film. It's 53 minutes, I believe, 53 or 56. And it's a vampire movie, but it's like very stylized, and it was pretty interesting. I actually had a good time with it. And on the disc, there was also a 10-minute short film called Nowhere that we watched after we watched the movie. So I've seen both of those. Those are the Tokusatsu that I've watched. And then I went shopping. I've got most of the Playmates Godzilla Kong stuff. The only things I'm missing is Evolution Godzilla, Scar King Battle Roar, and then the minis and the Kong mask. And I'm up to date with all the Playmates stuff.
Damn.
So,
see, they won't even come out in my country till like at absolute earliest, maybe May.
See, I have the privilege of, I know where they are because I work at a place where they're at, and I can just walk into the back room and open a box and grab one and walk out. Well, purchasing it, of course, but I could just grab it and go. So that's been kind of fun and kind of relaxing because, like, I was able to get everything in basically one swoop.
Yeah. Unlike everyone else
I'm
who was like going store to store trying to hunt them down.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I've got most of them. But I did have to hunt down the Suko and Doug one. So that was one that I went and I eventually found. Along with the Ghidorah playmates, so I grabbed that as well. But the issue is I have no space for this stuff. So it's just sitting in the middle of my room because I don't know where to put it. I have no space.
Of course.
Have you acquired anything in your collection, Mr. Rex?
Well, I don't remember if I mentioned it last time, but someone may have sent me a package that might have contained not only a Godzilla -1 t-shirt, but also a Godzilla Final Wars completion book and a broken Gauss figure.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know who sent it, though. Probably some weirdo. Weirdo DJ.
That's interesting timing because, it is around Christmas time.
Christmas time that I got it. Yes.
And you just had a birthday.
I did.
Well, happy late birthday.
Thank you.
And whoever got that must have been like the most awesomest friend ever, right?
Maybe. Either that or just some weird incel degen. But, same difference.
Well, it's definitely not the latter.
We'll see.
I feel like I've got more than that, but I don't remember. But no, that's I can't really say that's cool because that's patting myself on the back, right?
Oh, I didn't know it was you who sent that. Well,
Oh, you didn't?
Nope. Had no clue.
Huh. I could have swore I had you like video call me and open the box with me there.
That'd be crazy.
You're trying to gaslight me right now, and I don't think I appreciate it.
I'm not trying to gaslight you.
That's gaslighting.
Hey now.
You're a rock star. I'm in a cheerful mood, okay? Let me be cheerful.
So if you haven't seen any Tokusatsu, what the heck are we covering today?
We could talk about Kaiju. Oh wait, no, we already did that.
What about Godzilla? I'm a big fan of the G-Man, as you know.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts on him. I know you.
Well, if we're
a loser, but
if we are covering, new season, new year, we need to start off with something big. We're not doing a lot of episodes, but we got to start off with something I think
that means we should start off with Godzilla.
Okay. Godzilla Kong comes out. Do you want to speculate on it, or I don't really want to do that personally.
Do you want me to throw up? Do you want me to throw up through the screen?
Well, not really, no.
Exactly. I think it would be best if we just continued where we were at with the Godzilla series. And I did just conveniently rewatch a little film titled Destroy All Monsters from 1968.
It's funny you say that because I watched the movie.
No way.
It wasn't called Destroy All Monsters. It was called Kaiju Shoshingeki.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't speak Japanese, it's Monster Total Advancement.
Mm-hmm.
It came out in 1968 as well, August 1st, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think somehow we could talk about both of those and find a way to make it sync up?
Well, you know what's crazy?
What?
They're the same film.
Really?
Yeah. Can you believe it?
Wow.
I certainly can't.
I'm flabbergasted by that.
I'm happy to hear that.
So yes, we are starting off our 2024 year, the 70th anniversary of Godzilla, with a Godzilla movie.
Of course. I don't think there'd be any more fitting of a way for us to start the year.
I couldn't agree more. And if we're going to start off with a film this was originally supposed to be the last Godzilla movie, and here we are 70 years later, and this was the 9th Godzilla movie, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny that they were like, we're at 9 movies. Let's end it here because now we're at 30. Are we at 38?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this was ever really intended to be like the permanent end for the Godzilla series, given like, you know, before Destroyer Monsters actually came out in June of 1968, it was announced that Toho was actually going to be like co-producing like a Godzilla cartoon with an American studio.
Yeah, it was going to be a TV show.
Yeah, but there were also, according to John LeMay's book, there were also plans for them to do a compilation film, you know, combining a couple of the episodes together, and then also doing a King Kong Escape style live action adaptation of like one of the episodes.
So yeah, it's weird, right? Because maybe because those were co-productions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this was like this is the last Japanese like made.
I think
Godzilla.
the idea was this was just like the last like big main Godzilla film for like a while. I mean, there's some crew members I didn't write down the names. I should have.
I think Sadamasa
Arikawa, I believe, was the one who said that this was meant to be like the last.
And I think he said that Tanaka said that. So it was like a he said, she said situation.
Yeah, but I've heard that there are a couple conflicting reports on whether or not that was actually like legitimately like everyone like thought was on the same page with that, you know?
Right. And it's also reported that the reason they continued was because Destroyer Monsters was a huge success. But in all reality, it just did better than Son of Godzilla and Ibra, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, it just broke the downwards trend a bit.
So if I'm going based off of my graph, Destroyer Monsters had an attendance of 258 million.
Yeah.
Which was still less than Son of Godzilla's 309. So
I mean, bear in mind that 309 is after the Champion Festival.
That's right.
Because Son of Godzilla's initial attendance for like its original one was about 2.48. 2,480,000 roughly. Yeah.
So it did do a little better, but it wasn't like Astro Monster, because Astro Monster was the last like real big hit.
Right.
Granted, in context of today, all of those Showa films from those 60s have held up extraordinarily well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially, you know, anything from 54 to about 64 or 65 did just crazy numbers in comparison to today, I guess.
Yeah. Though -1 has passed both of them and is like, I'm pretty sure it's past Space Godzilla by the time this recording comes out.
Mm.
So
it's approaching Space Godzilla at the time of recording.
So as of the recording, it's 0.01 million away.
Oh, really?
That's confirmed. Now, that's like not yesterday's in Japan, but the day before. So it probably has beaten Space Godzilla.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a bit
tied
lower.
up. No.
Okay. Oh, that's nice. I remember when people were saying it wouldn't beat Return of Godzilla. Or if it did, it'd just get there and wouldn't get any further than that.
Yeah. I would love, this is a sidetrack, I would love to see -1 end up beating 98.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that, it would have to get 0.5 million more.
Yeah.
Which is 500,000. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Unless it has legs. It's almost
I mean, it's had good legs, and today Minus Color just came out, so, you know, or yesterday, sorry.
Yeah, but we also had the release of Aquaman in Japan, which it opened at number 1.
Yeah, but like Aquaman's not exactly doing crazy numbers either.
True. But with it opening...
It's opened lower than a lot of the other DCEU films there, so, you know.
But with it opening at number 1, that means -1 is either at number 9 or 10 in the box office.
Mm-hmm.
Which the moment it starts falling out of the top 10, we're going to have problems.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Shin Godzilla lasted 12 weeks in the top 10. -1 has officially entered its 11th week. If it can make it to this coming Thursday, it's golden.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, it's going to drop out. And, I mean, either way, it still will have been in almost as long as Shin Godzilla. So either way.
Yeah. Yeah,
but that's besides the
all
point.
Things considered.
Yeah. But that's besides the point. So Destroy All Monsters, it could have also been just a marketing tactic. I do sometimes wonder if because they did that with, well, I mean, didn't they no, I guess Mechagodzilla 2 was supposed to be the final Godzilla movie. And the only reason they continued was because Sony couldn't couldn't get their film off the ground. And then in 95, they just gave up.
Mm-hmm.
But in 95, they were like, we're done making Godzilla, but now we know that they always planned to produce one in 2004. That was always on the table. That was always the plan, was for the 50th anniversary, they would produce a film.
Yeah.
It just so happens that they ended up having to produce an entire another like round of Godzilla films because 98 did so bad.
Yeah, a few more than they anticipated, but it's fine.
Yeah. So one of the things that Destroy All Monsters did try to like really promote, with it being the last Godzilla movie, and this was something that the Toho executives like Tanaka told Kimura and Honda to do, was put every monster in, right?
Yeah.
And to this day, it does still hold as the second largest monster roster in a film.
Mm.
The only one beating it, of course, is Godzilla Final Wars, which I'm pretty sure that was what they did for that one as well. They were like, beat Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah. And, we got peak cinema from that.
Yeah.
So could that mean that Destroy All Monsters is peak cinema, theoretically?
Well, we'll talk about that once we get through the development phase of this film.
Okay.
Now, originally, Manila, Anguirus, and Gorosaurus were not set to appear in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because they all three end up being like the highlight kaiju.
They'd probably do more than 80% of the other monsters in the film.
Yeah. Originally,
Anguirus is one of the only ones to get a new suit.
Yeah, because Anguirus got a new suit because the other one was like actually gone. It didn't exist. Yeah. And then 68 Godzilla got a new suit because first of all, Nakajima couldn't wear the suit that they had proper.
Yeah.
And second of all, I think that suit's always just been hated on from the moment the film came out to present.
Maybe. I mean, they also just, if you're going to make a new suit for a monster, may as well give it to your main monster, I guess.
Right. But the kaiju that were originally supposed to be in place of Manila, Anguirus, and Gorosaurus were Ebirah and Maguma, which I don't know how to I don't even know where to start with those. I'm happy they got cut.
I mean, Ebirah makes sense because, you can just recycle the Ebirah props.
Yeah, but it's going to look awful on the top of Mount Fuji.
Yep.
Like, there's no way.
But hey, you can recycle them.
There's just no way that would have looked good.
Yeah. I mean, I've read that like an even earlier treatment from like 1967, before Son of Godzilla went into production. There was an early idea that included the Gargantuas from War of the Gargantuas and King Kong as well was intended to be in the film, but then, of course the rights relapsed.
You're talking about the Sekizawa script, right?
I mean, from what I read in John LeMay's book, it was credited to Kaoru Mabuchi.
Well, Kimura, that one, okay, from my understanding, Sekizawa wrote a treatment that was titled something along the lines of Total Monster Advancement, which was supposed to be this like giant brawl around the time Son of Godzilla came out, but it got tossed. And then Kimura came in like late 67, early 68. And it had Sanda and Gaira and Kamakuris. There's rumors. I've heard that it's even like, this is questionable if it's even legitimate or not, that King Kong was intended to be in there because so they got the rights in 1962.
Yeah.
They had a 5-year contract with RKO to have King Kong. Originally, they were supposed to produce a total of 3 films, but if you go listen to our Ibira episode, we talk about what happened to one of those and whatnot. But Destroy All Monsters, the day they started shooting, would have been too late because King Kong already would have been back at RKO.
Well, so yeah, that's why it's like, bear in mind this Kaiju Chushin Gura was being planned. Like, this was before Son of Godzilla had started filming. This was before the final script for Son of Godzilla was even done. But when Two Godzillas Japan SOS was decided to be developed, Kaiju Chushingura just got put aside for a bit, and then sort of the ideas came back, and Mabuchi was brought back to do another script, which would then feature Magama, Ibira, and yeah.
Now I do know, because that script eventually, so the second treatment of that script, they cut Ebira. Meguma was still in it as a glorified cameo, and Gaira was cut, but Sanda still appeared, and Kamakuris was cut as well. And I think they brought in Anguirus, Manila, and Gorosaurus, but then they ended up writing it more and cutting Sanda and Meguma. Which, what you just, I didn't hear that the script that because to my understanding, the title Kaiju Chushingura was the working title of the film, which was like late 67, early 68.
Either way, the monster roster obviously changed a bit between different treatments and scripts. And, I mean, some of like the actual, some monsters who do very little in the film were originally supposed to have much significantly larger roles, namely both Baragon and Varan, whom in the final film essentially amount to just cameos. But like in earlier scripts, everyone kind of knows a little bit about how Baragon was at one stage supposed to appear in Paris, with the final film even referencing that.
That's not true.
I know it was changed like before the film went into like storyboarding, obviously, because there's like storyboards of Gorosaurus attacking Paris.
Right.
But I've read that there was a treatment or an early script at one stage that had Baragon attacking Paris, from what I've read.
Gotcha. See, because I think I read that as well, I kind of chopped that up to that was assumptions.
Could be. That you could be right. I'd have to look at the source again. So I didn't think about that, but you could be right there, honestly.
Because it is weird, right? Because like even the dubs, like call Gorosaurus Baragon, right? But in the storyboards, which is usually after your script is done,
yeah,
you put it's what the script says is what your storyboards say. So I mean, maybe it was. I mean,
it could be something that was like originally was in the script as Baragon, and then they realized during like early on in the storyboard, or like right before storyboarding started, they're like, "Hey, wait a minute, the Baragon suit, these ears could cause issue with filming. We should probably change it to Gorosaurus." And then that's hard to say exactly when like that stuff happened. There's just too many conflicting stories, especially.
You know what would be funny?
What?
They found out they didn't really have a good suit for Baragon, so they said, "Oh, we'll just do Gorosaurus. We'll just remember to when we get to the point where they're doing their narration for this scene, we'll have them say Gorosaurus." And then they forgot.
I mean, honestly, it could just be that simple. It could be as simple as that.
Now, another thing that Honda wanted to do is he wanted to have more special effects sequences underwater as well. But due to budgetary constraints, despite this film being one of the largest in terms of production value at the time, which it was at 550,000, I think?
Yeah, 200 million yen.
They couldn't do that, which I know was a little upsetting for Honda.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that Honda was pretty excited to do with this film, he really couldn't, or just got to do like bare minimum, because Honda was interested. Sorry, him and Karumabuchi, Takeshi Kimura, were interested in exploring like the whole ins and outs of Monsterland, and just like this sanctuary where monsters feed. Like they had, because the giant monsters have to have some food for protein and nutrients and all that. How do you feed these beasts on? How do you supply food for all these beasts? So they had all these sorts of ideas, and pretty much none of them ended up making it in the film, outside of like one scene where you see Rodan hunting like some whales, pretty much.
Yeah. Now, one thing that Honda didn't want to include, but Nakajima wanted to include, I thought this was really funny. Nakajima-san wanted to include the Shay
Pose.
Dance following the death of King Ghidorah. But because Tsuburaya was not there for production, really, Honda got to really oversee everything and make final decisions. And Honda put that idea out.
But apparently there are some production photos of Nakajima in the suit, in the Shi pose. Yes.
Which I think I've seen those. I feel like I know exactly which ones.
I'm pretty sure I know the photo. But yeah.
I just have never put one and one together to get to that point.
No, neither have I. So then when I read that, I'm like, oh, isn't that funny? But yeah, no, outside of that, I don't think we've mentioned the fact that, we've mentioned obviously Ishiro Honda was involved, Tsuburaya was involved. This film, Destroy Monsters, brought back the dream team of sorts with Ishiro Honda, Eiji Tsuburaya, for special effects, although he was too ill to actually be the special effects director, so he was more just, like with the previous two films, he was in the supervising role. Although this time, Sadamasa Arikawa actually properly got credited as effects director.
Right, which is, for me, every time I think about Sadamasa Arikawa, I automatically think about like what your research, because you seem I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always had the vibe that you have a soft spot for his work.
Yeah, I quite like a lot of the effects he's done, like a lot of the effects of the films that he worked on as special effects director. Like, I love some of the stuff done in Son of Godzilla. But yeah, I think I mentioned Ifukube already, who came back to do the music after sitting out on the last two films.
Right.
Tomiyuki Tanaka, of course, producer. And yeah.
Now, I did want to bring up that this, we've been talking about, Tanaka's involved, of course, being producer. Tsuburaya was basically like he came in like once a week, said, good job or do this.
Mm-hmm.
Honda was at the director's chair and co-writer.
Yeah.
And then you had, Ifukube doing the music. But you also had the absence of Shinichi Sekizawa, which was the first time that Sekizawa wasn't involved basically since, the second Godzilla movie, because the first one was co-written by Ishiro Honda and Shigeru Koyama.
Yeah. And Takeo Murata as well, I believe?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then Raids Again was written not by Honda. Koyama was involved with that one. And there was one other writer.
Murata and Shigeaki Hidaka.
And then since then, so 1962, was all Sekizawa.
Right.
Which does create a very interesting thing with this film, because this film, you can feel the Sekizawa influence through and through.
Mm.
But you also have your Kimura.
It's a story you would suit Sekizawa, but it's
darker.
It's just played completely straight.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Sekizawa would write a story like this, and it'd have its serious moments, but it'd be still fairly light in tone. This is just played completely straight.
Yes, and we've covered Matango, which a lot of people will say is Kimura's greatest work,
including himself.
Yeah, and that's a great example of like he wrote darker stuff. Like that was kind of his thing. It was serious. It was darker. It was more adult in tone. Whereas Sekizawa wrote your more exotic, cheerful, playful, colorful sci-fi fantasies, right?
Yeah.
Which this film definitely... I don't want to talk about it too much because I want to do it once we get into the film, but it's very jarring to go from Sekizawa to Kimura.
Mm-hmm.
Which might be one of the problems I think this film has, because it doesn't try to go out of the mold, but the mold that it's trying to force itself into just does not work. But we'll talk about that as we talk about the story and whatnot. But this film, this was the last of Toho's non-Champion Festival films. When it was released in Japan, it was double billed with an edited version of Atragon.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, it was, or not later on, which was also done. This same idea of like getting an older film, cutting it down, and putting it as a double bill was also done for The War of the Gargantuas and King Kong Escapes. And a lot of people would say that this is what led to the Toho Champion Festival concept of editing films down, changing the titles, and, having them for children.
Mm-hmm.
It was a similar idea, which this film would end up getting the Toho Champion Festival edit in 1972, titled Godzilla the Grand Blitz Operation, which was double billed with Daigoro versus Goliath. for the Toho Champion Festival. And another thing this film ended up getting was this was the last of the 60s films to be released in the 60s in theaters in America. Mothra vs. Godzilla was released in 1964 in America. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, in 1965. Invasion of Astro Monster would not get a theatrical release until 1970. And then Ibra, Horror of the Deep, and Son of Godzilla got thrown onto television. And then you had Destroy All Monsters, which got a drive-in theatrical release from AIP, March 28th of 1969. And then it survived on television and was like re-released into drive-in theaters in the 70s as well. So it was in the 60s and 70s and early 80s. It was one of those like classic monster movies that a lot of people knew and recognized, and like Destroy All Monsters, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those legendary films, which we'll talk about that once we get there. But this is where I'm going to, speaking of theaters, I'm going to segue here into kind of our relationship with this film, which we'll wrap back around to at the end because it's a part of my final thoughts. Rex, when was the first time you saw this film?
It'd probably be back, I want to say 2019, when I was like getting around to like watching all like the Godzilla films that I had not ever seen before. And yeah, I've seen this film about twice before, I want to say, because I saw it once then. And then I know you did like a Kaiju Quarantine stream of some other podcasters, right. And I watched it there.
I forgot about that.
I maybe watched it one more time. I don't quite remember. So this watch would either be my third, maybe fourth watch at most.
I didn't know that you were so fresh to this film. See, I mean, this might have been one of the last Showa films I saw. This one and Raids Again.
Bear in mind, I only really grew up on like two of the Showa films before I hit like 13, 14.
Makes sense.
Because I just did not have most of the Showa films growing up, so yeah.
Right. See, so like I grew up on Showa, but this film was hard to find. This one and Raids Again were like virtually impossible to find, at least for me. So this was probably one of the last films I saw from the Showa era, and I watched it on DVD and Blu-ray plenty of times. This is one of the films that I have been lucky enough to see in theaters. I saw it at G-Fest last year. Granted, I missed like a third of the film because parking was a bit difficult. And I guess I did do Kaiju Quarantine. I forgot about that. This was one of those films for Kaiju Quarantine 3 we did. Was it the final film?
No, I want to say the final one was Gamera 3.
Was it Gamera 3?
I think so.
So yeah, there's that. And the last time I saw it was in theaters. So this is probably, I mean, I've probably watched it 10 or so times. So, easy. But I've seen almost every Godzilla movie 10 times, unless it's the anime trilogy. So Destroy All Monsters is definitely an interesting film, and I think we should definitely go ahead and dive right into the movie.
Well, I'd have to agree. After, film opens with some beautiful Ifukube music and a fun title card. And we are immediately introduced to, the fact that this film is set, interestingly enough, in the year 1999, right before the new millennium. And
Which
introduced to canonically makes this the final entry in the Showa Godzilla series.
Which, I'm going to be honest, and this is, talking very briefly about Terror of Mechagodzilla as well. I think doing it so like when I watch these films, I will never watch Destroy All Monsters after Terror. It does not feel right. Terror feels more like a proper send-off than Destroy All Monsters does.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, Terror is a little more bittersweet and kind of stings and hits you in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
Terror does. Destroy All Monsters definitely does not.
Yeah. I mean, both still feel like finales in their own sense, but Terror of Mechagodzilla just so happens to maybe be a bit better of a finale.
No comment. But I will say that we're also introduced to the concept that the United Nations has officially found a way to contain all of the monsters on an island called Monsterland.
Yeah, not Monster Island, though. That's introduced in the next film. And it's usually portrayed with the same footage, but,
Look, it's all downhill from here for the budget, so they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah, I know.
But it is interesting to see, and Honda definitely had an idea here. And I know he cited that he did it before, he wanted to do it before Jurassic Park did it. But the idea of all of the kaiju are like being controlled and whatnot, and like they have their environments, and if they try to escape, there's certain scientific advancements they've made to like keep them from running away. There's like shields over the island to keep Rodan from flying away, and fog or I guess it's smoke that like keeps Mothra from going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very interesting to see all of that. I think that's very interesting.
Probably the coolest part of the film. Just because it's, interesting. Yeah, this is an interesting location. And I think,
right.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see how humanity has contained the kaiju and, seeing the kaiju just in their sort of daily life. Like, I think it's really cool seeing Rodan just hunting for food. Simple things like that is just really cool.
Mm-hmm. We also need to establish that the film opens with establishing shots of Moonlight SY3 and some very nice miniatures. The first, 7 minutes of this film it's basically all special effects. You have miniatures, and then you have the kaiju suits with a little bit of the humans, introducing the situation.
Yeah, introducing all the people on the Monsterland base. And then also introducing the moon base. Speaking of which, this is where we're introduced to both of our leads, Kyoko Manabe and her boyfriend Katsuo. Kyoko is one of the crew members on the Monsterland base. Meanwhile, Katsuo is one of the pilots of the Moonlight SY3.
Which, this is her first day. She's like an assistant to the main guy. I mean, they briefly mention it, and then all of a sudden they get warnings of... Well, they briefly mention it. She gets a call from her boyfriend, and then while they're on the phone, things start going awry.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where we have the problem begin.
Yeah. There's an issue with the Monsterland base's power, and as soon as it's restored, a mysterious gas appears, incapacitating all of the crew as well as even all the monsters.
Which the UN eventually finds out about, and they try and find out what's going on Monsterland, and they soon find out that the entire island has like
Been attacked.
yeah, and they're trying to figure out what exactly happened.
But then all of a sudden, Rodan's attacking Moscow.
And Mothra's terrorizing Beijing.
Baragon attacks the Arc de Triomphe in Paris.
And Manda's attacking London.
Mm-hmm. And Godzilla, New York.
Which, I must say, I do enjoy seeing in a Toho film when the kaiju go to other places, because they're, especially when they're the tokusatsu effects, because it does look very interesting to see them like at, you know,
oh yeah,
they have Godzilla destroy the United Nations building in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And whatnot, and
like
just
the
seeing
Empire State Building in the background as well.
Yeah,
like,
and it's just cool to see that stuff. It may not be proper scale by any means, but it's still really cool to see all of that stuff happen, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's really cool seeing just, you know, that brief change of scenery with Rodan and, you know, Moscow and Godzilla, Paris. Like, you just see just different styles of buildings to what you normally see in the franchise.
Right.
But yeah, you know, the scientists try to figure out what the hell is going on, and eventually the Moonlight SY3 is recalled to, yeah, their moon base on orders to send it to Earth. But during this, they also spot a UFO in the sky.
Right. And they basically ignore it.
Yeah. I mean, they initially go after it, but eventually they lose it and they're called back to base. Anyway, so they're like, I guess we better get back.
Which, that's when they go back. They're told, you're going back to Earth. And they're sent off to investigate what happened on Monsterland.
Yeah. They find part of the base is in ruin, but the actual like control room is completely fine. Systems are all up and going, and then they encounter Kyoko and also Mr. Otani, played by Yoshio Tsuchiya.
Where they do basically the exposition dump for the problem at hand. They're acting a little funny and whatnot, and they lead the crew deeper into Monsterland whenever they introduce our crew from the Moonlight SY3 to the leader of the Keloks.
Yes.
Which, an interesting thing about the Keloks is the name is actually a reference to the villain of Chushingura, that's what it's called. Kira Yoshinaka. The villain, the Japanese name for Kelok is a reference to that, which, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, which I don't blame you, it's the story of the 47 Ronin that avenged their master that had to unjustly kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've seen 47 Ronin with Keanu Reeves or the original Japanese film, it's that story.
Japanese films.
Oh yeah, that's true. But there's one that's called 47 Ronin. The others are, I think, named the actual story. I think. I know there's two films named 47 Ronin, Keanu Reeves one and the Japanese one from, I want to say it's the 50s or 60s that the original
I think it was
from.
60s. I could be wrong. I might.
But it's the theory of like, oh, the kaiju are the Ronin, you know, which it's kind of funny because there's a lot of people that like have, you know, likened Godzilla to a samurai, a lone samurai, you know. And it's really cool to see them really go that far with with all of these kaiju not having a master, and they have to fight against the villain. I think that's really cool, that little reference and whatnot to that story.
On that note, it's interesting when you consider the fact that, Godzilla is the one that defeats the Keelox as well.
Right.
And he's the one who initially finds and destroys their base. I mean, the humans obviously know it's at Mount Fuji, but Godzilla's the one who actually, of his own free will, after the humans have after the Keelox destroy the humans' control system near the end of the movie, Godzilla of his own will just attacks their base.
Right. And I think this film especially would help that argument of like Godzilla is kind of like this samurai, this fighter who just wanders and fights whoever is going against what he thinks, right? It doesn't always necessarily work. I mean, that wouldn't work with -1, but when you're doing the whole kaiju versus kaiju thing, right? It definitely does work. And I do think that, like in films like Godzilla 2014, I think Gareth Edwards definitely was trying for that kind of presence for the character.
Yeah.
Which works. I think it absolutely works, and it's a lot of fun to see that idea.
Yeah.
But going back to the Keelox here, this is where we get the exposition of that they're here to take over the planet, and we need to surrender, and if not, the monsters will destroy everybody.
Yeah. Pretty similar to another film in this franchise.
Which one?
Astro Monster, but more or less any alien invasion film, honestly, in this series.
I was gonna say, yeah, and a lot of people I've seen compare this to Astro Monster, but the initial introduction to the aliens is a lot more interesting than this one.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Because this introduction is everything the Keelox have. After this, there's nothing new to their character. You get a little bit more like information on who they are and what they are, but you don't get anything else for them as characters.
Yeah. Nor as threats, really, because I mean, we know they have monsters under their control.
We also find out they can control humans.
Yeah, that too. And like the only real like reveals later that increase the tension are Ghidorah and the Fire Dragon at the end, both of which are completely not foreshadowed in the slightest, and just kind of appear. Well, I guess Fire Dragon might actually be the black ship at the beginning. Now that I think about that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. So, now that I think about that, making that connection now, Fire Dragon is set up a little.
It's explained, and I don't know. The Fire Dragon's lame.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it is lame. Like thinking
spoiler
of it now,
alert.
it's I guess it's set up, but yeah, it's basically just there, like to give the humans something to do in the final act.
Right.
Because
Now,
otherwise they don't really contribute to the climax.
Right.
Unless you count controlling the monsters.
Right. Now, I do want to say, talking about the humans and whatnot, the sets and the costumes, I love how colorful the film is. There's a lot of really nice color in the film.
Oh, yeah.
This definitely feels Showa with like its colors, and if I were to if somebody were to ask me like what colors, like what film in the 60s gives you the best example of Showa era colors, I'd point them in the direction of Destroy All Monsters, especially any time they're in the Monsterland base or the Keylok bases. Both of those are always very colorful and very vibrant.
Oh, yeah. The sets in this film, especially like that Keylok base, shown a bit later on, is really cool.
Mm-hmm. And even like Kyoko's costume later on is this bright red dress that like you can like, there's no way you'll miss it. Is very cool. Now, our human characters, talking about Kyoko and whatnot, and our human characters in the sets, our Moonlight SY3 personnel decide to try and shoot the Keylok Queen. It does not work.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly they have to get out because the gas comes back and whatnot. But they also have to fight the humans, which ends up getting kind of gruesome. This film does have a lot of gruesome moments with the human characters.
Yeah. It's always interesting how these Showa Godzilla films, even when they were... I mean, this wasn't when they fully embraced the child audience, but it was certainly getting to that point. I mean, they were definitely starting to embrace the child audience from, like, you know, after Astra Monster, and especially with Son of Godzilla. But, like, this isn't Godzilla vs. Megalon or Monsters Attack, even. So it's still... It's interesting. It's odd how the Showa era has just these bursts of violent moments. And, like, later on, there's a surgery scene in this film, which I did not remember at all.
Right.
So that was a little surprising.
In this scene specifically, there's a gunfight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the humans straight up gets shot in the head. Not one of the good guys. One of the bad guys gets shot in the head and dies. Now, it's like a blink and you'll miss it sequence, but it is still there.
Yeah. And I mean, another guy gets, like, shot in the... It was either the chest or the arm, I think.
Mm-hmm. And there is a little bit of blood. There's not a lot, but there is a little bit.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that's still, like, kind of crazy when you think about the context of this is a movie made for younger audiences.
Yeah. I mean, Megalon still has some gore, even though that one is fully geared towards the audience of Kamen Rider, pretty much.
Right.
But yeah. Eventually they escape, taking the brainwashed Yoshio Tsuchiya with them.
And when they do, they bring him to like a hotel room to interrogate him.
Yeah.
Dr. Yoshida and Yamabe both interrogate him, which the internal cinematography in this film was very tight and sometimes very, very well done, very well staged.
Oh, yeah.
I love the interrogation sequence here because it is very tight. It's very claustrophobic. It's very close to each other, which I'm always here for some nice, interesting cinematography.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple moments of that throughout the film. I don't know if it always works. There's a couple weird moments with the camera moving around at a couple points that I find a bit odd. Like there's a couple weird zoom-ins that don't really fit.
Mm-hmm.
But the film always does have at worst an interesting look, you know?
Right. And it definitely does. I will say one thing I appreciate is the film feels different from the other ones. It's got a story that's very much in line with what your mid to late Showa films were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, like, visually looks different. It is obvious it's got a bigger budget as well. And it's obvious that Honda's back in the director's chair.
Yeah.
And it is nice to have both a breath of fresh air and that just...
familiarity.
Yes. Both are very nice and work, but then there's also a lot of stuff that feels too familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also seen it done better.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of stuff that like is familiar but's been done better, I think that's largely the script.
Yes.
But yeah, during the interrogation, Dr. Yoshida and and Katsuo look away for just one moment to light some cigarettes, and during this, Tsuchiya just kills himself. He jumps out a window.
Again, children's movie. Dude straight up jumps out. Now, granted, I don't remember who, but I've had people watch the movie, and this scene they chuckle at because it's obvious that it's like a stuffed
I mean,
doll.
there's also just the fact that it's just a really sudden moment.
Yeah. And it is a little humorous how he falls, and then like the key lock controlled men are just ready. Like they're right there.
Yeah.
It's all very jarring and kind of like off-putting, but then, our two characters run down there to try and see what happened and are met by the key lock men, and then the secret police get involved and another gunfight happens on the beach here.
Yeah. The Exilians escape. Exilians? Wait.
You're thinking of a better movie, Rex. You're thinking about either the
Finals.
either the way better remake of this film or the way better film that came out
to this
before this film. Yes, you're thinking of those. The key locks run away on a motorboat.
Yeah. Following this is where we get an autopsy of Tsuchiya's body, where our humans discover some sort of metal object has been put into just behind Tsuchiya's ear, and it is some kind of radio receiver. And they eventually has some kind of radio receiver in it, and they eventually deduce that it was a mind control device, and that the reason the key locks were going after Tsuchiya's body was to, make sure this wasn't discovered.
And from here, it feels like the rest of the humans, like the last remaining thing they have is, we have to collect all the mind control things and figure out how they work.
Yeah. Find the signal, find all the signals, and eventually figure out the source of the transmission.
Now, following this, we get some sequences of Kyoko in Tokyo. Right? Or is there I feel like it goes straight to that.
I mean, there's a couple scenes of them acquiring various monster control devices.
Oh, that's right.
And then, like, the police putting out, like, search, just news bulletins to search for, hey, these people were on the Monsterland base. Please, if you recognize them, please contact us.
Right.
And then there's, the secret policemen just, like, checking various women to make sure they're not Kyoko.
Right. Which I will say it is
Kyoko.
Yeah. I do think I like the idea of, like, it's advanced technology, but it's not too advanced. Like, they can't just do it from anywhere. They have a radius that they can control them in. Mm-hmm. So they, like, have to be clever. Like, they hide them in coconuts, they hide them in ice, they hide them in church steeples, like rocks in a river. That's really cool. Like, that's an interesting concept that I love seeing, that futuristic but not too futuristic technology. That I think stuff like that does help the film.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have the whole Kyoko's just chilling thing, and, like, nobody's, like, doing anything. It's like, shouldn't you guys be able to figure out it's her? Like,
I mean, it's just kind of comical how the police just don't notice.
Right, exactly. And while we see Kyoko, walking through Tokyo, we get some
alarms
fun reveals for probably what I think is the second most memorable sequence in the film, which it starts off with Rodan appearing in Tokyo, followed by Godzilla and Manda, and then Mothra, which I will say the compositing of the humans running away in the miniature set are the best that the composited shots have ever looked.
Mm-hmm.
I was genuinely happy, especially this time around, like really focusing in on those. The compositing for all of the humans and all of the miniature shots look really, really good.
Yeah, there's also some good composites later in the film when like the moonlight, when like the Akira Kubo's character Katsuo and some of the other characters are like trying to find the Keylock base, and like they're being chased by they have an encounter with Godzilla. Like there's some good composite shots there of them like trying to hide from Godzilla. And there's also some really good matte painting shots that like I've never noticed before until I was looking back on some footage. After this rewatch, I was looking back at some footage with like in the 4K transfer, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's a matte painting. I didn't even notice this. Oh my god.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
There's a shot where Varan, Baragon, and Manda are all portrayed in a matte painting just off the side. And there's like a bunch of matte paintings for some of like the foresty areas.
Huh.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of matte paintings that you just don't notice in the film at all.
Interesting. See, I know a lot of people talked about how good the Mount Fuji matte painting was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that does look like a set. Like, that looks very, very well done. But I didn't know. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it now.
Yeah. Look, I would say look at it on the 4K set, but I don't think you own that.
I don't.
Sad. But yeah, no, some of the matte paintings look really, really good in this film.
Now, going back here, we're witnessing the destruction of Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
We get to see the military roll out, which is very, like, they're built into the mountains, they're built into the buildings themselves. It's all very interesting, I think, that, you know, they have, like, they literally, like, when I see that stuff, I automatically think of, in The Transformers, the movie, Autobot City like transforms into its own little like weapon because all the buildings have their own little guns and whatnot that fire back and whatnot. So it's kind of funny to like see something take that concept, you know, almost 20 years prior and do it as well. But I can't help but laugh because
how incompetent they are
and how long range that some of those weapons have to be, because like Godzilla's in downtown Tokyo surrounded by buildings and somehow there's missile launchers like off in the countryside. Yeah,
no, that's I was going to mention how my one issue with this like scene is that like some of the shots of the military like kind of just feel disconnected because of all that like countryside-ish like setting. Just feels completely disconnected from the rest of the scene almost.
Oh, it absolutely does.
And then they're just absolutely incompetent at hitting the monsters, even worse than 98. Because, you know, the monster, it's not even like Godzilla's running away, he's running right towards them and they're hitting everything but Godzilla pretty much.
Right. Which I guess, to my understanding, it's because all of the weapons are now drones.
I mean, they have tanks as well, so...
Apparently the tanks are also drones.
What?
I don't know. That's what Steve Rifle...
I must have missed that line of dialogue.
That's what Steve Rifle said in the commentary, that, like, the military weapons are all drones controlled by...
I do not remember the film establishing that at any point.
I don't think it does.
So, like, whether or not that's, like, canon or not doesn't really matter because the film doesn't do anything with that
Right. Now, I will say the Manda wrapping around the
Like that bridge or subway?
bridge
Yeah, the bridge.
looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of those, like, that's probably up there with, like, Kumonga in terms of, like, how intricate they had to be to, like, have Manda wrap around that and not look awful.
Oh, yeah.
But then they also have stuff where, like, Mothra just randomly pops out of a subway building. And, like, okay, when Godzilla does it, it's really cool. This
when
is
it's
just
Mothra
like...
lava, it's like, okay.
So, like, while this sequence has some really cool shots of Godzilla, rampaging and the Manda thing, I feel like this scene also has equally as just lackluster shots and effects. And it's supposed to be this big thing where it's like, oh no, Tokyo's absolutely, like, screwed. Which, I mean, following the destruction, we do get kind of a Final Wars-esque shot of just destroyed Tokyo, which does look really great. But it's also like, you guys just should have been hitting better. Like, you guys are the reason that it
caused like half the destruction.
So, it's, I don't know. This is a cool sequence, but I think it could have been better.
No, I agree. And yeah, there are a couple like really odd shots. Like there's one moment where like an overhead shot of Manda, and for some reason like the aspect ratio is off because it's like slightly stretched and it's like noticeably stretched and it looks really off.
Yeah, I know exactly what shot you're talking about. It doesn't make sense why that shot's in there that way.
It happens like at one or two other points in the film as well, I remember.
It's supposed to be the money shot of the destruction sequences.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we've seen better destruction in prior films.
Yeah.
I mean, any Ghidorah Rampage from 64, 65, I think is better.
Mm-hmm.
But we do, following this, we go into the UN's, like, bunker, I guess you could define it, where Kyoko shows up and is spouting out everything we already knew.
Yeah. Talks about how the Kilox have a base at Izu, which was literally just established moments prior. And yeah, Tetsuo, in another strangely violent-ish moment, just rips out her earring to remove the mind control device from Kyoko.
Right.
I don't know what it is with this scene. It just feels really weird and off.
Uncomfortable?
Yeah.
100% agree.
Like, it's meant to be a heroic moment of, like, Kyoko, like, being taken out of the alien's mind control, but it's just, like, the way it's shot, the screaming, like, the lack of music really just makes it
and the shots lingering on everybody else watching them do this.
Yeah, everyone's reactions, like, yeah.
See, I think some of it comes down to the problem of, up to this point, the only character development we've been given is Akira Kubo's character is the heroic guy that saves the day, and Kyoko is this damsel in distress controlled by aliens.
Yeah, I was going to mention that a bit later, how, like, this film is almost entirely plot-driven.
Which, the plot's not enough to even drive it.
No. No. And, yeah, the characters in this film are just completely, like, nothing. I mean, Akira Kubo gives a fine performance. He's pretty good in the film.
Because it's him.
Yeah, it's Akira Kubo.
He's just going through the motions.
Yeah. Kyoko, I don't think, is particularly good. Some of her line deliveries are a bit wooden. But, like, it's not the worst I've seen. And everyone else is kind of just there.
Right.
Kenji Sahara gets, like, one good moment, but it's kind of weird because it's like the only character moment in the entire film. Outside of maybe the phone call at the beginning.
See, I don't know. I honestly feel like there's so many A-list actors in this film. Like, this is full of Toho's, like...
Oh, yeah, you've got Jun Tazaki, Tsuchiya, Kubo, blanking on what the guy from Mothra vs. Godzilla's name is. The one with the mustache. I'm blanking on the actor's name.
Oh, Yoshibumi Tajima.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. No, and, like... They all do a great job. Now, I think Kubo and Tsuchiya and Sahara are the ones that have done, like, main character, like, not supporting characters, right? But I say that, but even then, Jun Tazaki, like, in Atragon, proved that he's still an amazing actor, even if he's...
he's also really good in the opening sequence of Gorath as well. That's probably one of his best performances in Toho film that I've seen.
But they all... There's this... It is in the script. It's a script problem because it does feel like you're missing that Takarada or that Hirata character that just brings in the character, right? That makes them memorable. Because there's not a single character in this film that is memorable or has that moment that is different from anything else. Or, you know, when we were talking, I mean, Akira Kubo shines in Son of Godzilla, and Takarada is such an awesome person to watch in
every
Ibra.
film he's in.
yeah. Or Nick Adams or Kumi Mizuno in Astro Monster and Ibra.
There's like one single character moment in this film that I can point towards as being in any way interesting. And that's like where near the end of the film, when the Moonlight SY3 crew are attacking the Exilians' moon base, and everyone's kind of not sure, have they succeeded, have they failed? There's like a little moment where Kenji Sahara's character is getting a bunch of phone calls from like various people from Earth, and he's just like tells like his crew to ignore it. We don't know. We could die possibly any moment. Just relax in these moments we have. It's like one small character moment that is really highlighted how much there's just none of this in the rest of the film, really. Right.
And that feeling of dread and impending doom would be so much better if any of the characters actually felt that, because it's obvious that's what they're trying to do, because they have the Keylok say the same thing every single time. We're going to take over the Earth. We control the monsters. We will destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
there is no impending doom fear thing, right?
Oh, yeah,
like,
there really
no
isn't
fear.
much tension in the film at all with them. I mean, yeah. Even when the Keylok summon Ghidorah, there isn't a lot of tension. Probably not helped by the fact that it's 10 monsters against one, who was defeated, last scene defeated by 2.
Right.
So
see, and that's something that I think in Final Wars, because Final Wars is absolutely a remake of this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Final Wars gives you that, like, the world is ruined and the war is already lost.
Yeah.
Like, there is no hope.
Yeah.
They are at the minus, and Godzilla's their +1. I mean, that's how it, like, that's literally how it is. Like, they, and it works, right? Because it's this, you're watching a movie where everybody is like, yeah, we're screwed, but let's have hope.
Yeah.
Right? This is, I don't care, we're going to figure this out. Like, there's no fear. It's all just pure, like, cockiness. There's a sense of everybody's not worried in this movie. They're too busy trying to get to the next location that they can't stop and make people feel for the next location. It's very much a beat for beat movie. Like, you're here, now we're here. Now we're going to go here. It forces the narrative to move, which does not help, especially for this final act where everything's been solved. We know everything. We know that they're controlling the monsters. We know how they control them. We know where they're at. We know what the solution is. And the film stops because they are trying to find a way. It's the explanation of how do we get to the final fight. And it's just this long, drawn-out sequence that does not need to be there. But before we go into that, I guess we should finish our breakdown of what happens after Kyoko's earrings get torn out.
Yeah. So after that, the military launch an attack to find and locate the Kilak's base, but they're attacked by Godzilla, Anguirus, and even Rodan. But during this, the Moonlight SY3 does notice a Kilak ship heading towards Mount Fuji, helping them realize, hey, they're probably around that sort of area. So then a search party is launched to go locate the exact location, but Godzilla then appears once again.
And I will say this sequence here feels a little fluffy. Like it feels like it's almost kind of there to just fluff
a little
to an extent.
I mean, I kind of like the sequence of just having our characters just escaping Godzilla in the jungle. It's kind of fun.
I don't know. I think it's just how they
or forest area. Sorry,
they like go for it, and then they quickly are like, nope, this isn't going to work. We're done. I don't know. It just
it does lead to them discovering the cave.
This is true. I don't know. I'll just be honest. Like at this point, I'm just waiting for the final fight. Like in my head, that's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's get to the final fight. Let's just get there. Because we're at what? This would be roughly the hour mark?
This is about the 50-ish minute mark, roughly.
50? Yeah. 50 minute.
But yeah. They go into the cave, realizing that it's, the Kilox's cave. And then they have another encounter with the leader and the other Kilox, who've basically summoned them here to more or less establish things we already know.
Again.
Yeah. And then they prove that they're aliens, I guess, because
again,
Tetsuo had doubts earlier. Wonderful.
Which I don't even understand that. Like, I feel like there would have been enough evidence here that
I feel like there was enough to okay, we don't really need to figure out whether these are aliens. The audience can just accept it as is,
Right.
Between the costume design and the technology, I think there was enough there already for the audience to accept it, especially when it's like aliens already exist in Showa Godzilla. Astro Monster did happen.
This is true, and it was canon.
Yeah. So, it's not like aliens wouldn't exactly... It's not like this is the first time an alien's been in the Godzilla film. But, alas, Yoshida and the crew on Monsterland finally discover that the source of the transmissions for the monster control device is coming from the moon. Thus, the SY3 is sent to investigate and try and destroy the monster control.
Which I cannot stand this because
This
So,
is probably
like-
the longest sequence in the film.
It is. And like we just had a whole thing about them learning about the different control devices and figuring all that out. And then we just go through the same thing again, except it's on the moon. And it's just one device. And this somehow takes up a 10-minute sequence.
Yeah, and then there's just a lot of fluff in this sequence. Like, there's a whole bit of them setting up, like, getting this maser drill and, like, just setting it up. And we spend, like, a needlessly long amount of time on it for what could just be, like, a really short scene.
Right.
And it wouldn't it wouldn't make it any worse.
Right. Now, I will say the sets are really cool here.
Oh, yeah.
But then even when they're like, once they've like gone through all of the like the fire and whatnot that like the Kilaaks have tried to use against them, when they finally get to like destroying the control device, it's like the song from Mechagodzilla 74. It's like, I'm done. Cut it short. It's like 2 times too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I don't need that bit with like the gun overheating.
Right.
That doesn't add any like real tension to the scene at all.
And the music is just the same. It's the same like 6 beats. It's just drowning. It's just it feels like we've already seen this happen once. It feels like we're just trying to add 20 more minutes to the runtime, and I just want to get to the final fight because we've been basically setting it up for that this entire time. Oh, Mount Fuji. Let's just go to Mount Fuji. Let's get it over with.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, so once they destroy the mind control device, we watch the Kilaak base turn from like very bright colors to this monochromatic like wasteland, which is a really cool effect. I think that's really cool. And I love the idea that the Kilaaks are just living metal. I think that's a really unique idea.
Yeah, no, that's really unique. It's not something you really see in a lot of science fiction, at least not science fiction that I'm familiar with.
Right.
So, like, that's an interesting element to the Kilaaks, but, you know, it's one of the few interesting things to them, unfortunately.
But something that was also mentioned, and Steve Rifle brought this up, so they can exist in Earth's atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need our resources. They don't need us. They're literally just trying to conquer us for the heck of it.
I guess that's true.
There's no motives. This is literally a pointless villain.
I mean, that's probably why they might be like the worst alien faction in the movies, because like, yeah, there really is not a lot to them. I mean, like, compared to like the Exilians or like the Space Hunter Nebula aliens from Gigan, you know, those guys, you know, they had the whole pollution aspect with their home planet. The black hole planet aliens, their planet is gone as well. So, you know,
the Futurians just trying to change time.
Yeah. The Ceetopians, even though they're not aliens, they have their own motivations.
The whole nuclear thing.
Yeah, the Kilaaks kind of just, there's not anything to them.
Pointless.
Outside of they're just aliens that are living metal.
So everything about this movie is lacking.
That's one way to put it.
But I will say, so after this, they go back home and whatnot.
Yoshida finally gets a monster control device back up again.
Which we do get a kind of funny moment where Godzilla shows back up in Tokyo.
Using the same footage from before.
Yeah. And they all get worried, and then it's like, oh, never mind. We control him. It's fine. That's a kind of a funny moment.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah. But fortunately, we are approaching the final battle, as all the monsters are taken to Mount Fuji, and, Varan and Baragon finally make another appearance outside of the monitor, like one shot on a monitor. Kumonga also shows up.
This is true.
Who hadn't been established at all.
But I will say, even with the stock footage and the lacking characters, the final fight here has a very fun, setup.
Oh, yeah.
We're listening to announcer, do the whole, and in this corner we have Manila and the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla.
Yeah, it's exciting to, just see all these monsters, just approaching the Keylog base. And then Ghidorah emerges through more stock footage.
Well, I was going to say, we have him here in stock footage again.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have some really cool... So after the stock footage, it basically cuts to him being present, at Mount Fuji.
Mm-hmm.
We get some again, the cinematography is interesting. We get some very nice shots. We get a nice overhead shot of what would be a POV of Ghidorah coming down.
Yeah.
We have some great shots of just these kaiju fighting. And honestly, I would say that this fight is one of the most fun and energetic fights that the entire franchise has.
Yeah, no, this fight is a lot of fun. It does not need half of the monsters to be here. I mean, Rodan flaps his wings and creates a gust storm only to be shot once and then just leave. Varan, Manda, and Baragon do nothing because, Varan and Baragon don't really have suits in good condition. And Manda's just a puppet snake, But yeah, no, for what the monsters who are actually contributing do, it's a lot of fun. I love seeing Godzilla work together with Anguirus, Gorosaurus, and his son Manila, whom hasn't grown a day, by the way.
Oh, that's true. Well, there is the theory that
it's this is actually Godzilla's actually Manila grown up, and it's a new Manila. Yeah, I like that headcanon. It's a fun headcanon.
It kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I do love, the shot of Anguirus going and biting Ghidorah's neck and, Ghidorah lifting him up. That's iconic.
Yeah. The kangaroo kick from Gorosaurus, of course.
Breaking his back, that's really cool.
Ghidorah just gets to lay down by the end of this fight. It's almost sad to watch.
Yeah, and once Ghidorah is down,
he doesn't get a chance to get back up at all.
No.
He's just done for.
Yeah, because then you have, Godzilla who, curb stomps. And, you see Ghidorah just spewing out blood.
And he was already covered in blood from, Anguirus, the bite on the neck earlier as well.
Right.
Bro's just getting brutalized. It's almost sad.
And then Manila uses his smoke beam attack, and then and
strangles the lost head. It's absolutely brutal. Ghidorah did not deserve such a beating, but goddamn if it isn't a fun fight.
It is. And you could, if I remember correctly, Nakajima said that all the suit actors were able to choreograph that, which I think is partially why it is as good as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really does feel like the fight is very well done. It was well thought out. It was well planned.
Yeah. The only issue I have with it is just that it's it's the most obvious scene where you realize Manda And especially Varan and Baragon really don't contribute anything to this film.
Right. No, they Manda has one cool sequence. Baragon does nothing. Varan does nothing. Kumonga does nothing.
I mean, Kumonga at least sprays some silk at it. Ghidorah. Which Mothra was already doing, but, he's helping a little.
Sure.
I mean, hey, he does more for the fight than Rodan.
Well, that's true.
Rodan gets shot once and leaves.
The more I think about it, the more I think that this movie is
a little lackluster.
A little lackluster. A little lackluster.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll
call it understatement of the century.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in that statement. We'll come back to that.
Yeah. After the beatdown, suddenly the fire dragon attacks.
Which we've already talked about it.
It's lame.
It's lame.
It hits Rodan like once. It destroys the control device. Destroys a couple buildings in Tokyo, and it's literally just there so that the human characters have something to do in this climax, something to contribute, because it gets shot down by the Moonlight SY3.
It's pointless.
But yeah, Godzilla also destroys the Keylok base.
This is true. Yeah, following the fire dragon sequence, Godzilla destroys the base. And then all the Keyloks die, and everything's dead, and the fire dragon's dead because the base is dead, and the earth is fine and happy.
Ghidorah's corpse falls away, and yeah, happy days. The monsters all get returned to Monster Island, or Monster Land, sorry. And Varan finally shows up properly.
And then we get a nice helicopter shot of
all the monsters.
And they're like, "Oh, goodbye, Rodan. Goodbye, Godzilla. We're going back to Tokyo. Goodbye." Wait, nope, that's the wrong movie. Sorry. I was thinking of a much better movie with Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. And aliens. Okay. I'm just going to be honest here. This movie sucks. Like, this film lacks in every department.
Yeah.
Like, the only things that it does well in is the final fights, kaiju action, and the cinematography. Like, everything else is boring. The story there's no weight. There's no, like, everybody's just phoning it in. For, like, the big finale of the franchise, this film, like, just does not feel at all like it.
Oh, yeah.
The final fight is great. The last about 10 minutes of this film is worth being dubbed as a finale.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it this. I did like it a little more than last time when I saw it, because last time I was very bored. This time, I'd say I felt the runtime dragging in the second half a lot, but I wouldn't say I was outright bored with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was watchable. It was a watchable film, which is more than I can say for some Godzilla movies.
So here's my whole thing, and this is the interesting life of Destroy All Monsters. After its theatrical release stateside, it went to television. Once AIP folded and then Orion lost the rights, the film went and was gone. It was basically lost. There was no VHS. There was like two 8mm versions of the film. There was no way of watching this film. It was basically lost. Mm-hmm. Which is weird because I had the same situation, because I had heard about the legendary film Destroy All Monsters, where all the monsters team up and fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
The premise is great.
Yeah.
But that premise and that nostalgia and that, like, build up and excitement for this classic legendary film where all of the Toho Kaiju team up and fight against King Ghidorah really outshines the reality of this film. This film, at least for me, has just gradually gotten worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because rewatching Son of Godzilla and Ibra, I had a new appreciation for them. Mothra versus Godzilla was pretty much the same. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, I love. Astro Monster, I ended up liking a little bit more. I went back and I looked at my old ranking from 2019. And I have Destroy All Monsters above Astro Monster. I would never do that again. I don't know why Destroy All Monsters is in the top third. It's a boring movie. I feel like to have an appreciation for this film, you needed to live through the time where it was a lost film.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this legendary movie. That, I think, helps this film for a lot of older fans. And I'm not one to complain about the human characters, but the human characters in this are so bland, I would rather just watch the kaiju.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing is, I don't think I outright dislike this movie anymore, because, I'm not going to say I watched this film and didn't enjoy my time. I overall enjoyed this rewatch. But, the big issue with the film is just how nothing any of these characters are. There is nothing to anyone except, that one scene with Kenji Sahara. That one moment of, an actual character in the film. And then the film also just drags its feet in the runtime, because this is a fairly simple story. There's no real reason for this film to be any longer than 70 minutes, but it ends up going for a full 90,
Mm-hmm.
When
you could cut this movie,
trim numerous scenes down, namely the Mazer drill scene. Why that goes on for so long, God only knows. Why do the Keylocks keep reestablishing things the audience already was told? I don't know. Why keep that in? Outside of just the only thing I can think of is maybe just keeping it so okay, the audience remembers that they are there. It's the only reason I can think of for those scenes.
See, I don't know. I think you could easily cut 45 minutes out of this film.
That much?
I think so.
Wow.
Unless you did, it's either that or do significant rewrites.
Mm-hmm.
Completely redo the keylocks. Completely redo their whole thing. Completely rewrite all the characters. There's got to be some sort of tension. There's got to be some sort of fear or problem or something.
Yeah. Maybe give the keylocks an actual motivation.
The film lacks any motivation.
Mm-hmm.
I had no motivation watching it. I struggled to write down thoughts because I was okay, we're talking.
Yeah, the film is just going through beats on this, beats it just has to hit. As you said earlier, okay, so we've got this Tokyo attack scene. The next scene, we've got to have the characters discussing what our next move is. We've got to also have a scene of Kyoko getting the brainwashing removed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a tank fight with Godzilla, Anguirus, and Rodan. It's just going through the motions.
Yeah. There's plenty of other films to do that are way better.
Yeah.
Takashi Kimura's done way better films. This might be his worst movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen The Last War or Gorath or The Lost World of Sinbad, but I don't think those are anywhere near as boring as this one.
Again, my fundamental issue with this is there's just nothing to any of these characters, which is an issue I also have with the other Godzilla film that Mabuchi worked on, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, where I couldn't tell you anything about those characters outside of there's a little kid, the professor, and other people.
There's a dude, and then there's a lady that looks like she's naked, but she's wearing a weird bodysuit.
Yeah. Like,
there's the mother.
I couldn't tell you anything really much about any of the characters in Hedorah.
Stupid teenagers, smart scientist, know-it-all kid. Yeah, no. But we're not at Hedorah yet, so we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
However,
it's
unless you've got
Godzilla scripts have no memorable characters, because he can actually write characters. I mean, Gorath has one of the best opening scenes in any of the Toho films with Jun Tazaki and the crew of the ship at the beginning of the movie that first discover the planet. In just 10 minutes, you get a whole, just a little character story that's quite well done and well executed. So, why Kimura couldn't integrate characters into this film, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Now, while we are kind of complaining on Kimura here, we also have to acknowledge the fact that Honda did co-write this movie.
True. That is... Yeah, you're not wrong.
Now, I say that. Do you want me to go ahead and slide into the crew of the film and
sure
give you the rundown?
Go right ahead.
Okay. The film was directed and co-written by Ishiro Honda, whose credits include Godzilla, Half Human, Rodan, The Mysterians, The H-Man, Varan, Space, The Human Vapor, Mothra, Gorath, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Matango, Atragon, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, Invasion of Astro Monster, The War of the Gargantuas, King Kong Escapes, Latitude Zero, All Monsters Attack, Space Amoeba, Terror of Mechagodzilla, various episodes of the following: Return of Ultraman, Mirror Man, Thunder Mask, and Zone Fighter. The co-writer, Takashi Kimura, worked on Rodan, The Mysterians, The H-Man, The Human Vapor, The Last War, Gorath, Matango, The Lost World of Sinbad, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, The War of the Gargantuas, King Kong Escapes, and Godzilla vs. Hedorah. For this next credit, I wrote as much that would fit on this page, and then I gave up.
Oh no.
Produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka. Godzilla. Godzilla Raids Again. Half Human. Rodan. The Mysterians, The H-Man, Varan, Monkey Son, The Three Treasures, Battle in Outer Space, The Secret of the Telesian, The Human Vapor, Mothra, The Last War, Gorath, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Matango, The Lost World of Sinbad, Atragon, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Dogora, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, Invasion of Astro Monster, The War of the Gargantuas, Ebra Horror of the Deep, The Killing Bottle, King Kong Escapes, and Son of Godzilla. And about 100 other credits between 1967 and 1996. Your composer was Akira Ifukube, who also composed Godzilla, Rodan, The Mysterians, Varan, The Three Treasures, Battle in Outer Space, The Whale God, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Atragon, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Dogora, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, Invasion of Astro Monster, Daimajin, The War of the Gargantuas, Return of Daimajin, Wrath of Daimajin, King Kong Escapes, Latitude Zero, Space Amoeba, Godzilla vs. Gigan, Terror of Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mothra, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, and Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Your director of special effects, Sadamasa Arikawa, that directed the effects for various episodes of Ultra Q, Ultraman, Kaiju Busca, Ultra 7, Abra, Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, the show Warrior of Love, Rainbow Man, and uncredited for The Mighty Peking Man. As for your cast, leading actor Akira Kubo, who played Katsuo Yamabe, who was in The Three Treasures, Gorath, Matango, Invasion of Astro Monster, Ultra Q, Son of Godzilla, Space Amoeba, Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, and The Great Buddha Arrival. Yukiko Kobayashi, who played Kyoko Manabe, was in Ultra 7, Space Amoeba, and The Great Buddha Arrival. Kyoko Ai, who played the Kilak Queen, has no other tokusatsu or kaiju credits to her name.
Mm-hmm.
Jun Tazaki, who played Dr. Yoshida. The Three Treasures, Gorath, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Atragon, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Dogora, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, Invasion of Astro Monster, Ultra Q, The War of the Gargantuas, Ibra, Horror of the Deep, The Killing Bottle, and Jumborg Ace. Yoshio Tsuchiya, who played Dr. Otane, was in The Invisible Avenger, Godzilla Raids Again, The Mysterians, The H-Man, Varan, Battle in Outer Space, The Secret of the Telesian, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, Invasion of Astro Monster, Ultra Q, Ultraman, The Killing Bottle, Son of Godzilla, Ultra 7, Space Amoeba, and Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Kenji Sahara, who played Nishikawa, was in Godzilla, Rodan, The Mysterians, The H-Man, Mothra, Gorath, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Threaded Monster, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, Ultra Q, The War of the Gargantuas, Ultra 7, Son of Godzilla, All Monsters Attack, Space Amoeba, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Terror of Mechagodzilla, Ultraman 80, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Ultraman Nexus, Godzilla Final Wars, Superior 8 Ultra Brothers. Kazuo Suzuki, who was also in The Invisible Man, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, Ultra Q, Ibra, Horror of the Deep, All Monsters Attack, Terror of Mechagodzilla, and Kamen Rider Super 1. Minoru Ito, who played Minoru Kudo, was in The Invisible Avenger. The Mysterians, The H-Man, The Secret of the Telesian, The Human Vapor, Mothra, Gorath, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, Atragon, Dogora, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, The War of the Gargantuas, King Kong Escapes, Ultra Q, Ultraman, Ultra 7, Return of Ultraman. Toru Ibuki, who played Tetsuo Issei, was in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, Ultra Q, Ibra, Horror of the Deep, King Kong Escapes, and Terror of Mechagodzilla. And the final person I have here is Susumu Kurobe, who was in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Ultra Q, Ultraman, King Kong Escapes, Son of Godzilla, Latitude Zero, Return of Ultraman, Ultraman Taro, Diamond Eye, Ultraman Leo, Megaloman, Gridman, Ultra Q the movie, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mothra, Ultraman Max, Ultraman Mebius and Ultraman Brothers, Superior Ultra 8 Brothers, Rigo, the King of the Sea Monsters, and Monster X Strikes Back, Attack the G8 Summit. That was a lot.
Yeah.
But it is done. Now, before we can really and truly wrap things up here, Rex, with all Godzilla movies, we have to do a ranking.
Yes.
So we will be ranking Godzilla 1954 all the way through Destroy All Monsters plus Godzilla -1.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start at the bottom and make our way to the top.
I think I can predict what's at the bottom for both of us.
What do you predict?
At number 10, I've got Godzilla Raids Again.
I agree.
At number 9, I have Destroy All Monsters.
I've got Mothra versus Godzilla. I still think that film's more boring.
Damn. And what do you have at number 8?
I have Destroy All Monsters.
I have Ibra, Horror of the Deep.
That's funny because that's the next film on my list, Ibra, Horror of the Deep.
Oh, yeah. For me, at number 7 is Mothra vs. Godzilla.
Son of Godzilla? Is that next on your list?
Yep. Number 6?
I agree.
Followed up by, at number 5, King Kong vs. Godzilla.
I concur.
Mm-hmm. Number 4, Invasion of the Astro Monster.
You are accurate.
And then, number 3, this is going to break your heart. Ghidorah.
I had number 3, I have Godzilla, 1954.
See, I've got that at number 2.
Oh, well, my number 2 is Gojira -1.
See, I've got that beautiful, beautiful film planted firmly at number 1.
Well, for me, at number 1, I have the apparently underrated by you, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. So, when I was making this list, I actually was trying to figure out where I would put Destroy All Monsters. Because I was like, it's not as fun as King Kong versus Godzilla, so it's firmly below that one.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, I was like, okay, Mothra versus is more boring, so it's definitely above that one, but where would I place it between Son of Godzilla and Ibra? And I was like, Ibra does drag, but it is more memorable with Takarada's character. Son of Godzilla is more entertaining, and between those two things, I put it at a lower ranking, but after this conversation, it definitely is stuck at that ranking.
Yeah. Yeah. For what it's worth, I did end up liking the film a bit more than I remembered. I was fully expecting to be like really bored throughout a lot of the runtime, and while I did definitely feel the runtime, I was, as I said before, I wasn't like terribly bored.
Right.
Like, it never quite felt like a chore, but I know that some rewatches have felt like that. So,
right.
So, yeah.
I will say, for me, it definitely felt like a chore this time.
Mm-hmm. But, hey, I mean, so far, I would say I like pretty much almost every film that we've ranked. So, honestly, Destroy All Monsters being near the bottom, yeah, it's not that bad of a film. I would not go as far as to say it's like one of the worst films in the Godzilla franchise.
Yeah,
but it is definitely overrated in certain senses.
I agree. It is overrated. It's not one of the worst. I would say what we have in the ranking so far, the top 2 are amazing for me. Number 3 is good.
Top 3 are amazing.
I would put 54 at good.
Damn.
Actually, it would be 1 and 2 are great. 3 and 4 are good. 5 is decent. 6, 7 are okay. 8 is all right. 9 is meh. 10 is bad. I would say Raids Again is a bad movie.
Yeah, I'd agree. I would say Raids Again is the one, like, actually, like, bad movie thus far.
Mothra versus Godzilla is not a bad movie for me, but it is boring, so it's like, eh. So I think with that,
I think we've more or less reached the end of Destroy All Monsters discussion, I guess.
I think so. I think we have one last thing to do. And I would say it is the most noblest of podcasting traditions.
Shall I begin?
If you would like to.
Well, dear listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram, Rex_Xeno. And if you want to take a look at some of my writing, go check out the Tokusatsu Network.
And as for me, hello, I'm Elijah, and I have a Kaiju and Tokusatsu problem. Joking aside, I am Elijah Thomas. I am one of the rotating hosts for Monsters with Attitude. You can check us out on YouTube, where we do monthly live streams talking about kaiju entertainment. You can also head over to Facebook and join our Facebook group. It's a great place full of people to talk to. I'm also a writer. I've written for GodzillaMovies.com and I have appeared in Kaiju Ramen Magazine. Currently, I write for Kaiju United, and my most recent article is a review on Godzilla -1. My writing has also been featured in the Rondo-nominated book, Giant Bug Cinema, A Monster Kid's Guide from Bear Manor Media, where I wrote about Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I'm also a filmmaker and YouTuber. You can check out my stuff on my YouTube channel, ET13 Productions, where you can see some of my short films and older YouTube videos, along with a playlist that features all of my appearances on YouTube. I do plan on getting more videos out soon, so definitely stay tuned for that. I also appeared in a kaiju movie, a little-known film called Zillafoot from 2021. I made a brief cameo in the film as Skywatcher number 2. It's got a rating of 3.7 out of 10 on IMDb. So if you want to watch more kaiju, you can buy the Blu-ray on srscinema.com or the DVD from any major online realtor. Or just watch it for free on Tubi with ads or on Prime. You can also check out my action figure photography on my Instagram at ET13_productions and my X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Thanks, Danny, at the same handle. And as for the podcast, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't actually. That's a lie. I'm literally staring at a MacBook right now. But you can rate us on Spotify. If you want to stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook at the same handle. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you. You can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word. You know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. We're probably going to have some original artwork on there pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. But for now, you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. Recently, there was a conversation about Ren Watanabe and the cast of Monarch.
Watabe.
I was reading Ken Watanabe and I saw, talking about the cast of the Monsterverse, specifically the cast of Monarch and the cast of Godzilla 2014. It's a great community full of great people. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel like bloopers for episodes or minisodes talking about news or other subjects. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jared Kerchevsky on the channel. Definitely butchered his name, I am so sorry. And a huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and all the other content we upload. His links can be found in the description below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Grattan Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening. Another Godzilla movie in the bag. Welcome to 2024. Welcome to Season 4 of Kaiju Conversation. So thank you guys so much. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. Kaiju, not too big now, baby. Conversation, his name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.